Well, this week I'd like to share something a little different than I normally do on this channel. I'm going to step back in memory lane and share with you some photographs that I took while I was on a horseback ride. I have had it in my mind that I wanted to experience what it was like for a rider in the Old West to travel mile after mile after mile by himself on horseback. So I decided I would experience that back in September of 2009. In the process of that, I did take a camera and I took a multitude of photographs, and I also kept a daily journal, and I would like to share that with you this week. I took this trip just here in the state of Montana, and I left the last week of August, traveled through the month of September, and returned the first week of October. And overall, I spent these 5 weeks traveling 650 miles. And this is the story of that trip. Day 1. It was 23 to 24 miles to Fireman's Point in Columbus. I camped there below a mansion in my humble abode. I pondered the contrasts and necessities of life. Hannah and Betsy, Hannah was the mare I rode, Betsy was the Molly mule. They're pretty tired. I'm not, surprisingly. I had ravioli for supper, and by the time it was done, I was feeling like it was bedtime. I looked at my watch and it was only 8:30. I guess I am tired. Day 2, I was up at 5 in the morning, made about 17 miles, and I visited with Tyler Peterson. He gave me directions to another 4.5 miles to a stock tank and a coulee. There was spring water, decent food. I spent the night there. Day 3, I woke at 4 in the morning. I grazed Hannah and Betsy till 4:30, and it started to rain. I was back up again at 6, off and on showers through the night. It set in solid by 8 o'clock, so I packed up in the rain. I went to Reed Point, and I was there by 11:30, and then north on Reed Point Road to a wide spot in the road next to a stock tank. Nobody was home. I hope it's okay. Beef stew for supper. Day 4. 22 or 24 miles, only made 15 yesterday. I was given directions for an abandoned county road and saved a mile or so. They also gave me directions where to camp by a man named Rocco. Up a draw to the stock tank. Never did find the stock tank. Day 5, up at 5 o'clock, in the saddle by 7, and I rode till 6 that evening. 27 miles. I passed through the Breddings, and Ed said it was 16 to 18 miles as the crow flies to Harlowtown. I'm traveling with the crows, following the wagon trail that Ed says leads to the county road. Can't miss it, he says, just ride west. 6 o'clock, first things first, I need a bath. Reminds me of Independence Day movie and Will Smith kicking the ailing and yelling, "What's that smell?" Should be in Harlow decent time tomorrow. Cutting through Breddings, cut off a lot. Day 6. I was following the old wagon trail, had a great day, no houses all day till I got to Harlow at 3 p.m. Hundreds of thousands of unfenced acres with only occasional cross fence on a township line. I got to Harlow and found the fairgrounds only to find signs that says, no horses, no livestock, $100 fine, no dogs. And why do I want to camp in Harlow? I don't. I'll head north tomorrow. Day 7. Supposed to be a restful day today. I ended up being 28 miles that day, probably 25 miles, and there wasn't a house, just a couple of stock tanks. We watered below the Bar Nothing Ranch where there was a sign that said forest boundary 1.25 miles. That was a long 1.25 miles. Day 8, my first relaxing day. Saddlebag water's gone, but 2 in the pannier, and glad for that. I prepared my first cooked meal. Every camp has been dry till now. Day 9, 5 a.m. to water and feed on the trail by 8:30. A bit cooler. I think I'll put on 2 shirts today. So off to the south I went, mountain forest trail, only to end up on the rocky bald knob with the survey marker, steel pipe, and no way off. Day 10, first place was a mile or so down the road. A man came out and said, I looked out the window and what am I seeing? A mule out in my front yard. He hadn't heard me knock, but he was still in his slippers, and we talked for 45 minutes. He used to be a school teacher, so he knows everybody, so he gave me directions to the Sapphire Village with the typical country directions. Head west. If you hit a locked gate, head north. You'll find one that's open. I came upon the Wertheimers. They were gathering cows. He asked me, "You rode from where?" I told him Joliet. He says, "You did that on purpose?" Yep. Day 11. I rode through Utica and was disappointed when I had to see paved roads. But pretty uneventful day. I made it clear to Dry Wolf Creek. Lots of smoke. I don't know where the fire is. Cleared the rocks and debris. Good enough to sleep on. Day 12. Up at 5:30. Stomping partners are ready to go. I grazed till 7:30, then broke camp and headed for Monarch. I think I only have about 27 miles to go. I didn't make it. Day 13, 2 hours it was to Monarch, 25 miles to Great Falls on day 14. Was in the saddle by 7 o'clock in the morning, light frost on the canvas. Day 15, finally made it to my brothers in Great Falls. Second day, rest day. This is the second rest day. Breakfast of eggs, toast, fruit, and milk. The night before, I'd eaten more than I had for a whole 2 weeks, and my body couldn't take it. I had convulsive diarrhea, multiple times. Day 16, packed up, fresh shower, off on the road by 10 o'clock. We're headed south, 10 miles down toward Eden, and Hannah comes up lame. She can hardly navigate up and down the ditches. So I called Diane and said, it looks like this ride is over. I'm going to have to head back to Great Falls. But after 2 or 3 miles of walking back, she seemed to limber up. So I left another message and said, I'm going to try it again. I'm headed south to Eden. We camped where I can water in the morning, and Hannah seems to be okay. Betsy's not too hungry. She just laid down and we needed to rest. Day 17, I made it to Milligan. It was a long, dry stretch. Flying ants were pests most of the day, hardly any breeze. Stopped at the bottom on Milligan and the Anderson Ranch. Filled my water bottle. They offered me ice cream and peaches that evening. It was great. Day 18. Hannah's tired. I walked for several miles just to give her a break. Betsy's ready to go. I entered the Galt Ranch where I met Pat Bergen. We had cowboy camp coffee and a chewy bar. Had a great time. Talked of his 36 years with the Galts. Good folks to work for, he says. I'm going to switch to Betsy tomorrow, and I'm going to pack Hannah. Day 19. At Milligan, they said I was 75 miles to White Sulfur. I camped on the Galt Ranch. I was 42 miles from White Sulfur. So I switched and I saddled and rode Betsy, and it gave Hannah a break. She became my back horse. At noon, there was a sign that said White Sulphur Springs, 20 miles. It was hard to imagine that we had traveled 22 miles in 4 hours. I had to shut this freight train down. We stopped just before 6 at the first sign of grass and water, and we were at mile marker 9. Sometimes I didn't know where I was until I rode the next day and could find a reference point. I had turkey and vegetable dinner. The label says microwave and ready in 90 seconds. It was open and gone in 90 seconds. Such a pretty sunset, and the storms were in the clouds. Daylight's fading, so this is the end of day 19. Day 20, I met Steve from the ranch house just across the road. He invited me for breakfast. The first time I was invited in. What a great breakfast. He runs 250 to 270 cows, and he knows all the locals. I ended up not leaving camp until noon. I headed west for White Sulfur, and then headed south on the South Fork. There called it quits. Not quite as nice as the lush green pastures that night, and the girls didn't really like it. They didn't eat too much today. Day 21, I found my way south to the little town of 16, sagebrush and barren country. I found a little seep on a swale on the top of a knob, and there was some green grass, so we grazed there for about a half hour. Lots of unfenced riding, just a few cross fences and cattle guards. I rode into a nice little house and pretty little green yard where I met the Eckbergs, who now own the town of 16. They invited me in for supper, club sandwiches, potato chips. It was great. Chocolate ice cream for supper. Made new friends. The rain showers were blowing through, and Ingrid says that you need to stay in the bunkhouse, which was a little RV off to the side. I said I'll head back and see how the girls are doing. So I checked back and, well, they were doing fine, but I decided to stay. Day 22. This is Bill's day. I met the neighbor, Bill, who is a neighbor about a quarter mile up the road. He's a bachelor in a trailer. He has about 50 crossbred Pomeranian Sheltie dogs. His four-wheeler is in the shop, so he's running a wheelbarrow. So I walked down to meet him. He asked me where I'm going, and I said I'm headed for Bozeman, but I need to go across the Motlow. Any way to get across? I've got an old black horse, he says. I don't ride much anymore because I got a pretty gimpy leg. I could ride across with you, you know. Kind of show you the way. I was quick to jump on that personal guide deal. I got up to the old road before Bill was ready to go. He had to nail on the shoes first, so I got to watch him coming up from the trailer house up to the road. Bill and about 35 of these crossbred dogs. I never have watched so many pooping, peeing, scratching, yapping at once. 2/3 of them are in front, 1/3 of them are in the back, constantly underfoot. Betsy and Han are just trying not to step on them, and they never do. It was a rough, rocky, washed-out old logging road going across till we got into Shike's homestead, where we watered on the Middle Fork. Neither of us wanted to say goodbye. Bill noticed a downed log by the homestead and said he'd use that to get back on. I walked off and watched him get on that old horse, and I was quite surprised to watch that old black stand so patiently. Up he is, waves goodbye, and off he goes. All the dogs yapping wildly. Oh, Bill, I hope your trip home is safe. Thanks for the personal guide and a fantastic memory and a great friend. Day 23. It rained pretty good last night, frosty this morning. I was letting the sun dry things out when Frank from the CA ranch stopped. We were talking about listening to the elk bugling when he got his binoculars and we looked at a sizable herd on the hillside above us. I'd been enjoying that sound, picking out 4 or 5 distinct bugles all morning. I made it to Flathead Pass around 5 p.m. that night. Not lots of grass, but plenty. There's a creek, cottonwood tree to camp under. We're good till morning. Day 24, up at 6 in the morning. The sky's starting to lighten up. Grays for about an hour and a half and gone by 8 or 8:30. I picked up a traveler a couple miles down the road. Nice, friendly dog, willing for the company. She traveled most of the day. We passed the house with a little boy and a girl playing in the sandbox. That was the last time we saw her. Hope she makes it back home. Got to Bozeman. Oh, traffic is a fiasco. We went under the underpass between Bozeman and Belgrade, figuring it for the least amount of traffic. We had to cross the frontage road, so after waiting forever, it seemed like, I was ready to go and stepped her up, and I guess Hannah had gone to sleep because I went to go and she was planted and refused to come. Consequently, I burned my hands on the lead rope. Next time, I'll speak to her first. Then the railroad tracks. They were a spooky sight. Hannah burned me again. Needless to say, my right hand is pretty tender. I made it to our son and his wife, Nate and Brittany, about 5:30. We're going to be here till Friday. Then we'll head to Livingston. Day 25. I watered Hannah and Betsy, played with Bentley, their dog, washed clothes, washed the dishes. Nice, relaxing day. Day 26. Nate and Brittany's first anniversary. We'll head out for supper tonight. Day 27. I'm back on the road. Feels good to be in that saddle again, but Bozeman traffic is the pits. I picked up another dog that followed along, but finally got the go on her. I made it to Mystic Lake about 3 p.m. I never did find the trail that was supposed to go across. I rode till 5:30 and finally stopped on the top end of Mystic Lake. I guess I'll try it tomorrow. Day 28. What another day. I took Bear Creek Trail, it headed west. Before too long I was blocked in by down timber, dug out the axe. They were 2 logs deep, so I cut through the first one and jumped the second one. Further down the trail there's an 18-inch log down with the trunk to the side of the trail, so it would have been not too bad, but Betsy didn't want to go till I got off. Then she jumped it like a deer. Hannah didn't like it. The third log across was head high, too low for saddles, so we bushwhacked a bit and made it. 6 p.m. I sat at the junction of Goose Creek and Trail Creek. Girls drank well about 2 p.m., so they'll have to do till morning. Lots of grass. Lots of bear poop too, with chokecherry seeds in them. We're above the creek, so we should be good till daylight. Day 29. A pretty decent night, but it was on too much of a hillside, so I kept sliding on down the hill all night. We were on the pavement for a couple miles and all the fancy houses and then gravel and more ranch country. About 10 o'clock we hit Newman Road and were at the Divide Road by 12:30. 4.5 miles to go to Livingston and Gardner. A lot of shoulder driving. The girls did good though. We came to the end of a long guardrail stretch only to find it stopped within 2 feet of the steel pipe post. Betsy squeaked by, but Hannah hung up the pack and tried again, made it, but teared my panniers. We were stopped by 2 guys in a Forester kind of a car, and they asked me if they could take my picture. Sure, why not? Out they both get with their huge lens cameras. They're from Connecticut, out here to take wildlife photographs and headed for Yellowstone. Click, 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 as we were visiting. You're the most photogenic thing we've seen on the whole trip, says the one passenger. Click, 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 and off they go. Day 30. Cold this morning. It was warm last night, but cold this morning. Frosty, but not too bad. We passed the Forest Service office, so I stopped to get a real map. This time maybe I won't get so lost. The ranger station says that we're headed for snow in the next few days. It's supposed to change. So I felt like I should get on the trail. But I was going to stop and see my sisters first. Part of the goal of this trip was to discern what is really necessary to sustain oneself. The bare basics are pretty simple, and resourcefulness. Many of the stares and responses, especially from the young people, are showing me that most don't have a clue what I'm doing or represent. Times are past, mostly forgotten. Day 31. I'm about 4 miles from McLeod. Pretty ride on the west side of this road. We're camped just behind an irrigation ditch, so we're sheltered a bit from the road, but the wind is getting strong out of the southwest. Day 32. I could see that it was finally starting to lighten up, and I could hear this light kind of misty rain. I looked out at the flap, and that misty rain was snow. Finally, about 10:30 or 11, I decided I wasn't going to hang around here anymore, so I saddled up and headed for McLeod. Day 33. Some days end up having names for themselves, such as Old Bill Day or Let's Ride Day. Having gone to bed at 7 o'clock last night, I should have expected an early rise. When I did awake, I first thought, it's getting light, I better ride. Crawled out of the sack, talked to Betsy, hey, it's time to go? I looked at my watch, 12:20 a.m. It was getting light because the clouds were breaking and the moon was peeking through. A bit early to ride. Back to bed. When the real morning light came, I was ready to go. About a mile out, we came to the old Boulder Road, which we took. Nice gravel road, mostly sand and mud with the recent rain and early snow. Easy on the shoes. We hit Big Timber by about 11:30. So I stopped at the hamburger store and got a quick lunch and was headed east to Bridger Creek. A fella stops in the pickup. So I saw you back in Big Timber. You're making pretty good time. He had seen me at the post office before. He asked me where I was going to stop. He offered his place. You're welcome to come. It's pretty far to go. I don't know if I'll make it that far. I'll probably camp before that. He understood. Day 34. I was camped at the junction of Stockade Road and Spring Creek Road. It's the first intersection outside of Bridger Creek. Not much grazing as Bridger Creek, and the junction was the oasis we looked for. Inside corner, lots of grass, water, headlights go over the top of us. I was getting camp set up when I thought I could see the Stormfront building out of the west, so I pre-weighed my panniers, figured to be short and sweet if it was raining or snowing in the morning, and in tough weather coming. Day 35, heavy frost this morning, but no rain or snow, only scattered clouds. Much better riding. Days have been nice, but I've worn my black winter coat all day. Cold, cold winds. Today was a strong, steady north wind all day. It was 5 o'clock when we hit the Cooney's Dam store, where I bought a couple of bottled waters and a Pepsi. I figured on a splurge for the last meal out. Oh boy, a Pepsi. So my last meal is a raisin oatmeal cookie, a can of spaghetti and meatballs, and a Pepsi. Grand finale. It's hard to believe this is coming to a close. It took forever to get here, but it's gone so fast. It will have been 36 days. I probably enjoyed this last week the most. I would rather ride in the snow and the cold than to be under the pressure to get back. The girls are used to stopping by 6, so it's unfair to push them. I found myself more critical of the luxury life we live. The grotesquely overdone houses we live in, the loud cars we drive, motorcycles, and the fast pace of life we think is so necessary. I'm not sure just where the balance is or how to find it. We live in a look at what I have world. I'm not sure we need to live to the old Bill standard, but I probably would have appreciated him the most. I like that man. I could learn from him. I have read that when a man and a horse spends that many days together, there's something like a marriage that happens. I knew it had happened to us, unbeknown to me. They have been true companions. I've scolded, disciplined, brushed, petted, loved on them, and we've become bonded. I saddle and unsaddle, pack and unsaddle, never timed anything. Betsy knows when it's time to stop. The daily routine of the last 30 days have become habits. I like the star, the cool mornings, the cold meals, the water when it's sweet, cold fingers, and the runny nose. Lights are fading. I need to set up my tent. Day 36, the final day, tomorrow. I was expecting rain or snow when I woke up, but there was nothing. Heavy overcast skies, brisk north wind. As I fed Hannah and Betsy, snow began to lightly fall. It seemed like I was reluctant to leave. I took my last pictures of Hannah and Betsy, each individually, gave them each a pet and a hug and a word of thanks for the companionship for the last month. They might not have understood, but there was an awful lot of dust in the air that was bothering my eyes. Seemed like everything had that last attached to it. The last time putting away the tent, the last time of saddling and packing, the last drink on the trail, the last breakfast of fruit and granola bars. I began to chide myself for my silliness. It finally turned into, good grief, just get her done. We walked back to Cooney and had a drink. They grabbed at some green brome grass like they hadn't eaten all day. The last green grass on the trip. Good grief. So off we head, last 12 or 13 miles. How soon this day has come. The wind was cold, toes were cold, fingers were cold. Ride back to Joliet was pretty straightforward. I wanted to get some last pictures, so I talked to my friend Joe and if he'd come down and take my last picture. He was more than willing. Thanks, Joe. You're a good friend as always. So I stripped my gear in the alley, walked the girls to the pasture. Seemed like they were glad to be rid of their halters. Eventually, we got the gear in for the alley and I headed back home quick to put away the garden hose and to bring in a little wood to prepare for the cold weather and the week of snow that was in the forecast. Good to be inside to a fireplace, but at the same time, it would have been okay to still have been out in it too. So as the Pilgrim's Progress ride of September 2009 comes to a close, similarly, it has ended as it started. No fanfare, no glitter, just a time to see what it was like to travel a long distance on horseback. As I commented to Joe as we were taking the final pictures, I responded to the inquiry, "Did you like it?" If I could figure out how to make it pay, I'd make it my occupation. I loved it. Well, this story is now 14 years old for me. It is in my memory lane. I hope you enjoy coming back with me to those memories. Thanks for following along.